Well, it's summer, and what better way to spend your summer vacation than by listening to me talk about Journey for over 10 minutes? Yup, that's the life. Well, the day has finally come. My first album review. And what better album to start off with than the new Journey album, Eclipse, right here. This is Journey's 14th studio album overall, and their second one with their new singer Arnel Pineda, the first one being Revelation back in 2008. And I can guess what some of you are thinking right now, you know, like, oh, this is the band that Don't Stop Believing, they're just a stupid pop band, they don't mean anything, blah. So let me give you a little Journey history lesson. They actually started out in the mid-70s as like a prog rock jazz fusion band started by Neil Schon and Greg Rowley, who recently left Santana. And with this style, they made 3 great albums, their first 3, which is the self-titled one, Look Into the Future, and Next. Then Steve Perry joined in 1978, they released Infinity, and you know the rest. But I've been looking on YouTube and iTunes reviews, and have noticed that there are some fans of their earlier work who actually say that they sold out with their popular stuff in the 80s with Steve Perry, which I personally disagree with. And that Revelation I was talking about earlier, I noticed that on the closing track, Journey Revelation, self-titled track, they actually hinted at her proggier style. It's like this very interesting 5-minute instrumental with a lot of different sections in it, and found it very interesting. And the reason that I'm mentioning the earlier days here is because when I first heard this album, Eclipse, I was shocked at how experimental and ambitious it was. It really bridged the gap between their old and new periods, and in my opinion, a little foreshadowing here, I think it might be their best album ever released. I mean, not the best album ever released, but theirs, for sure. This ain't your dad's Journey, kids. There's no Don't Stop Believin', no Faithfullies, no Open Arms, just pure prog and pop rock genius here. I believe that this is the album where they just realized that they're not getting as many hits as they used to, and they just said, screw it, we're doing what we want. Like I said, this hints at a slightly proggier, experimental, and more ambitious direction, as most of the songs here exceed 5 minutes, some of which even near 7. But it keeps you engaged the entire time. It just hooks you at the beginning of City of Hope and just doesn't let go until the very end of Venus. It includes some of Neil's best guitar work. There's just massive solos that go on for minutes at a time, but there's also a lot of great riffs too, especially on the first 3 songs, City of Hope, Edge of the Moment, and Chain of Love. And as for Arnold's vocals, he fills Steve Perry's shoes perfectly. He doesn't just fill the shoes, Why must my speaker hate me so much? And as for Arnold's vocals, he fills Steve Perry's shoes perfectly. In fact, he doesn't just fit into the shoes, he went back to the store and customized them to fit his own unique style. That is the worst metaphor I've ever heard. Ever. But disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. This will confuse fans of classic Journey, but give it a chance and it'll just floor you and take you on a ride that you shan't forget anytime soon. There are still some songs on here that I think will appeal to the fans of the, 80s cheese stuff, like the more straightforward stuff. I think that songs like City of Hope, Anything Is Possible, and Someone would definitely do it for them. In fact, every song on here does have its own reason to love it. And I'm going to make sure most of them are mentioned in this review, if not all. One of the first things I noticed was how hard-hitting and just anthemic and epic and just over-the-top everything is. At the end of City of Hope, they almost did this heavy metal-style, fast-paced instrumental breakdown section after the traditional song structure the song went through. Another thing I noticed is that the songs seem to be a bit more guitar-driven now than driven by vocals and keyboards, kind of like the other stuff was. The guitar sometimes took a back seat. Well, that's not the case here at all. In fact, a perfect example of this would be on the song Edge of the Moment. There's just this monster of a riff in the beginning that actually sounds more like a repeated solo, but fits so well with the vocal melodies. There's also this weird spacey synth and piano intro on Chain of Love It leads into just 6-minute epic with this uncharacteristically abstract and deep lyrics from Neil and Jonathan, and some of Arnell's best vocal melodies. There's no beginning, there's no end. There's no self, no fortress to defend. An endless circle beyond space and time, the chain of love that binds me. Yeah, Neil and John have definitely gotten better as songwriters and as musicians, or at least reached their full potential. And the beginning of Tandra, the next song, is just Journey doing what they've been best known for in the sap department, especially with that beginning part. But with these brilliantly conceptual lyrics about aliens and outer space and planets, added on to this wonderfully sappy, cheesy style in a different direction. But it goes in a different direction this time. Definitely the most experimental sound on the album lyrically. And the song after that, Anything Is Possible, is definitely the most classic sounding Journey song on the album. It's for those stubborn fans who won't accept anything that doesn't resemble the big hits, basically. There's these inspirational lyrics, memorable melodies, especially in the chorus. And if you think that this song is too experimental, then I don't see how you'd like anything on Escape or Frontiers. And as weird as ambitious as this album gets, well, at least in comparison to their other work, Resonate, the next song, is definitely the most dark and proggy sounding song on the album. It starts with these spacey, almost noisy effects that set the mood for the rest of the song. There's lyrics about missing loved ones and connecting with people almost telepathically. And it ends with just this epic, heavy guitar solo, as long songs the album do. Pretty much this entire album seems conceptual in some form. But what that concept is kind of vague. They're not afraid of leaving us guessing. The next song, She's a Mystery, is a bit of an oddball. It starts out as this simple, acoustic guitar-driven romantic pop song that definitely fit in well with the mainstream pop rock of today. I think I even hear a drum machine in there somewhere. But then it just turns into this big, heavy rocker with speeding guitar solos and a ton of power chords around 5 minutes in. It's the perfect way to end that song. The next song, Human Feel, is probably the most upbeat song on the album. There's these pounding drums from Dean Castronovo and very engaging riffs and vocal lines. Definitely one of the best. Jonathan King delivers these great string section parts on the keyboards, or maybe they brought in real string section, but I'm guessing it's the former, in the chorus of Ritual that really get you hooked. But a really interesting thing about that song to me is that the lyrics are kind of confuse me, or should I say they mean something different to me every time I listen to it. The first few times I listened to it, I figured it was about conforming to society. But then the next few times, I thought it was a critique on our dependence on technology. And now I think it's a critique of organized religion. It's just going around all over the place. And before anyone says I'm overanalyzing anything, they did say in an interview, I believe that I read, that they were going for a deeper lyrical substance on this album. Then it slows down a bit when To Whom It May Concern comes, but just builds and builds into epicness, as a lot of songs in the album do. And the next song, Someone, like anything is possible, is also very classic sounding. It's very straightforward in delivery and lyrics, and I also love the backing vocals in the chorus, something that isn't usually very notable about Journey songs. And the album closes with Venus, which is basically a reprise of the closing riff in To Whom It May Concern. It's just these soaring instrumental with huge in-your-face guitar solos, which leads me to probably my only couple gripes about the album. I think it should have been 11 tracks instead of 12, in that I believe that To Whom It May Concern and Venus should have combined themselves within the same song, because it doesn't really make themselves that they're in different parts of the album. I think it would have been great if they could have been combined and put into just huge 9 or 8 minute epic. And I also think that Venus was kind of anticlimactic, as awesome as it was. I was a bit disappointed by the fade out after a little less than 4 minutes. In my opinion, that's no way to end a great album like this. And now I'm going to go over to the production, which, in my opinion, it just fits the music perfectly. I mean, it just has this epic feel to it that perfectly complements the music, and I wouldn't have it any better. Lastly, I just want to say that they're not necessarily leaving old fans behind, but I'd say more they're challenging their flexibility and open-mindedness to new styles, if that makes any sense. My favorites? All of them, gotta be honest. I mean, it was just consistently great all the way through, not a single clunker in this entire fantastic album. And as for a rating, I go pretty high. I'd go as far as to say I give it a 9.3. Just throw a number out there, but I think it fits the review pretty well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was my first album review. Tell me what you think of it. What do you think of the album? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Oh, now I'm stealing from the needle drop. And there'll probably be more of these in the future. I can't really promise it'll be that often, but I'll do it as often as I can, or just when I want to. Maybe one a month. We'll see. And I shall close this with having the spaceship on the album cover come towards you. Dot, dot, dot.